There we go. All right. Welcome, everyone. We're so excited that you decided to spend this hour with us on what is really one of the most impactful and important foundational tools in our EOS toolbox, the accountability chart. We're going to give folks just a minute or two to get in here, and then we will get this thing started on time. I would love it if, as you're coming in, you jump into the chat and share with us where you're coming from. Where are you hailing from to join us today? It's always fun to see all the different locations where people are coming from. So, oh, look at that. Kansas City. Welcome, Kansas City. Nicole. That name sounds so familiar to me, Nicole Gergen. Let's get a few of you to jump in there. Oh, Louisville, Cedar City. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Oh, San Antonio. Nice. Jersey and Philly. Oh, there was a West Coaster. I saw Mesa in there. Kind of West Coast, not exactly. Joining me here from the West Coast, Connecticut. Lovely. Probably really beautiful out there this time of year with the leaves changing color. All right, we're going to give you all just about another minute, and it looks like we are coming in fast and furious right now. Good, welcome, Leanne. Again, those of you that are just joining us, let's make sure that come say hello. Say hello in the chat. Let us know where you're coming from. Oh, somebody's already populated. We've got some experts in here. Somebody's already added to the Q&A. Oh, all right, there we go. Perfect. Oh, hello from Vermont. Hello, Ruben. Back at you. All right, so it is 8:30. Welcome, 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 everyone, to the Rerun on EOS webinar. We are today focused on sharpening the saw, and that accountability chart is just such an important tool. And, you know, Gino has often said the root of all evil lives in this tool, but the root of all goodness does too if we do it well. And we've got an amazing facilitator with us today that's going to take us through that. And there are a lot of people joining us. We've got some really stellar programming. And again, happy that you decided to spend an hour of your day getting better with us here. So my name is Sherry Kuhn, and we are going to, again, spend time focusing on that accountability chart. For those of you who are a little bit newer to the EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operating System, welcome. For those of you that are experienced with EOS, we're so happy that you joined us today, and we still feel like you're going to get a lot out of our time together. So my little title up there says Sherry Kuhn, Seattle. So my name is Sherry Kuhn. I'm a certified implementer and a coach on the implementer development team here at EOS Worldwide. And I live just about 20 minutes north of Seattle in a beautiful town called Mukilteo, Washington, right here near the water. Been enjoying quite the wonderful Pacific Northwest summer, and I'm really excited to be here with all of you today. This session is being recorded, and the recording will be shared today following the event. So, you know, still take notes and still dig in there, but know that that's coming. It is a webinar format, so you won't have time on camera, but we'd love to hear from you, not only in the chat, right? So the chat for kind of some EOS logistical questions is a great place for that. We've also got this great Q&A feature. So if for the questions that you would like Justin, who will be out here in just a moment, to answer after he's done facilitating and teaching, make sure that you get those into the Q&A. That's where we will answer questions. Use the chat for just to communicate, say hi, say hello, where you're from. If you've got a specific EOS worldwide type of question, that's a great place to put those as well. Let's see, what else do you need to know? Oh, you know, we can't see all of you, but we would still like to know when something really kicks in or resonates with you. So use those reaction buttons down there, whether those are hearts or thumbs up or smiley faces, whatever that is, that lets us know that, ooh, that was a point that really landed with you, or that was something that really resonated with you. It helps give us, oh, look at that. See, thank you. That's what I'm talking about for you handful of folks that are doing that for us. And remember, you can add Q&A at any time throughout this webinar. We will try to get to as many of those as we can in our Q&A section, which is a pretty good chunk of time. But if you've got any burning questions now, you're not sure if Justin's going to cover that, go ahead and get them in there. We'll know if they get covered, and we'll be monitoring those. Also, we want to make sure that you get everything you can out of our time together today. So please take some great notes. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm getting caught off reading some of the chat. That way you'll get everything that you want. One final note, again, keep those little thumbs up and those little hearts, keep those coming. We love seeing that. But I think without any further ado, I'd love to bring out my good friend and amazing EOS implementer, Justin Cook. Woo! Woo, woo, Justin's in the house.
Woo, woo, the applause. I can barely hear. Thank you so much, Sherry. And thank you everyone for being here. And like Sherry said, spending an hour of your day with us. And I want to make sure that we maximize that time. So I'm just going to jump right into it. I'm Justin Cook. I'm a certified EOS implementer here in Nashville, Tennessee. And I'm so excited to be doing the accountability chart because it is one of my favorite tools. I remember when I first joined the community and became an implementer, I heard sort of tongue in cheek, 82% of the issues are in the people components. And, about 350 sessions in with my clients, it bears out. That's where they are. So I'm going to share my screen and we're going to get into this people component. And before we do, I just want to sort of center us on where we are, go over the agenda. So we're going to start with accountability chart 101, and we're just going to make sure we hit the fundamentals. Even if you've been doing this for a while, you've been working with an implementer, it can help to just get back to basics. So we're going to start with the basics, then we'll move to accountability chart 201, and we'll spend some time diving a little bit deeper because EOS is kind of like an onion. You can just keep peeling the layers back and go deeper and deeper. And then we'll make sure we save some good time for Q&A at the end. Like Sherry said, get those questions in there so we can get you everything you want from this. So as a reminder, we're dealing with the people component of the EOS model. And the EOS model comes from this discovery that all of the issues you have in your business, all the frustrations, all of the stuff, typically comes from a weakness in one of the 6 key components. And they all work together, so you can't just focus on one. And so I always want to start by just reminding of the context. But today we are going to focus on that people component. And when we're talking about the people component, we borrow from Jim Collins and this concept of having the right people in the right seats. And right people, those are just people that share your core values. And we could spend a whole hour just on right people, but we're going to focus on the second of these, which is the right seats. And right seats just means that they're great at their job. But how do we define if they're great at their job? That's where we use the accountability chart. And so some foundational things, these are the things I remind my clients when we're starting, or I teach them when we're starting, we're going to do this work. The accountability chart is like an org chart on steroids. Org charts by themselves are a lot about titles and different lines, dotted lines, and there's a lot of ego involved. And this is sort of taking that out and really amping it up and getting crystal clear on accountability. Now, there's some ground rules with this. To have a great accountability chart, you have to do structure first, people second. What that means is when I'm doing this exercise with my clients, I start by saying, everyone's fired. Nobody has a job, right? We are going to do this. We know what we've got. We know what we're trying to achieve, and we're going to build our ideal organization. So we're going to take a structure first, people second approach. And then we're going to identify for every seat, what are the 5 roles that this person is accountable for? That's where we start to add that accountability. And the other ground rule is we are going to forget the past. The past is past. I don't want to know how you've been doing it. You have this beautiful gift to be able to decide how you want to do it. And so those are the ground rules as we get into the accountability chart. And then I just want to take you through the fundamentals. And so we start with this fundamental belief that every organization has 3 major functions that have to be addressed. You have to have a marketing and sales function. You got to go out, generate demand, turn the demand into customers. You got to have an operations function. You have to deliver the product or service that you sold and do that really well. And you have to have a finance function. You have to manage the flow of resources and money in and out of the business. And what I love about this is that it's true for every business, from a lemonade stand to a Fortune 500 company, right? Even in a lemonade stand, somebody's got to put posters up and put flyers around the neighborhood, let people know that we're selling lemonade. Somebody's got to make the lemonade. We got to make lemonade, deliver it. Hopefully it's not terrible. I've had some mixed results at lemonade stands. And then we've got to manage the money and hopefully get more money than we spent on ingredients. So this is just fundamental business stuff. You got to get work, you got to do work, and you got to get paid for the work. Now, you can customize this to your organization. Sometimes marketing and sales breaks out into two distinct functions. There's a big marketing function that's generating the demand. There is a separate sales function that's capitalizing on that demand and converting it. Sometimes operations splits out into distinct functions. I have a lot of companies in the trades, and a lot of times they have a new construction operations, and then they have a function for service. And then sometimes finance breaks out into multiple functions where maybe HR is a dedicated function. Ideally, you're going to end up with 3 to 7 major functions. And as you're trying to decide, is it a major function? Well, just ask yourself, does it need a voice at the leadership level? Right? Do we need this when we're making these key decisions? Does it need a voice here? Now we know once we've figured out our major functions, we need an additional function called an integrator. And the integrator is who makes sure that these major functions operate harmoniously together. Because in a great organization, there should be some tension between marketing and sales and operations. Give me a thumbs up if you've experienced some tension between those two functions. Because marketing and sales always wants to sell the newest, greatest thing that they've heard about. And operations wants to do what they know how to do. They don't want to have to do a new thing every week. And here's the thing, if marketing and sales always got their way, we would never be experts in our delivery, and our customers would be coming in the front door and out the back door. But if operations always got their way, the marketplace would just leave us behind. And so we've got to have somebody managing and making sure those major functions operate harmoniously together. They're the decider when we've reached that impasse. And then, of course, we know that in most entrepreneurial organizations, there's an additional major function called the visionary. And we separate those things out because what an integrator brings and what a visionary brings are two vastly different things. And we really believe that when you separate those out and you get the right person in the right seat in those two functions, it creates rocket fuel in your organization. And I want to talk just a little bit more about what an integrator brings, right? So an integrator brings that clarity, communication. They're obsessive about resolution, focus and prioritization, accountability, team unity. A lot of times they're really good at project management, right? On the organization level. They have a high level of follow through, getting things all the way across the finish line. And they're naturally able to remove obstacles and barriers. On the flip side, you've got visionaries. Typically, the visionary is the founding entrepreneur. Lots of ideas. I love to say that visionaries have 20 new ideas every week, 19 of which are not great, but one of which is going to take us to the next level. It's going to help us grow the organization. A lot of times they're a strategic thinker. They're always looking at the big picture. Typically, they have a pulse on the industry and your target market. They understand what those people need. A lot of times they're focused on research and development of new products, new services, new stuff we can do. At the end of the day, I like to put it this way. An integrator is a world-class leader and manager of people. And the visionary a lot of times does seagull management, where they just fly in, poop on everything, and leave, right? If you're a visionary on this call and you've done that, I love you from the bottom of my heart. It's okay. But what we want is to be crystal clear on what you're accountable for. And we want to have somebody that has that skill set of leadership and management to really drive the organization forward. And so we figure out your major functions. Do we have a visionary in our organization, an integrator? And then from there, what makes this an accountability chart is we're actually going to put in these boxes what is this person accountable for? And so imagine a marketing and sales seat in a small organization. Well, that person might own LMA, and LMA stands for leadership, management, and accountability. And this is just how we roll everything up into one bullet, all that stuff that goes into leading and managing people in a way that results in accountability. So they've got LMA because they have people reporting up to them. They own all the marketing stuff. They own the sales stuff. In this organization, they own the big fish relationships. I have a client like this, and they've got salespeople, but for those customers that spend over $1.5 million a year, the sales leader, the person that owns that major function, owns those relationships. And then account management, making sure those customers are happy, farming those accounts, generating new revenue from existing customers. And what I want you to notice here is that this is high level stuff. You can kind of imagine if you were writing a job description, you might take each of these 5 bullets and in the job description, give it 3 to 5 sub bullets where you're fleshing it out. So you're not trying to write a whole job description here. You're just putting in here, what do they own? What are they accountable for? What do we count on them for? And then last, you plug in a name. And this is the beautiful part, but also the really hard part, is that you design the seat for what your organization needs, and then you see if you've got the person for it. And hopefully you do. And if you don't, now you just know what you've got to go get. So you build that out for every seat in your organization. What's the function? What are the 5 roles that they're accountable for? And eventually you have something like this. You have your full accountability chart. And remember, you're doing this 6 to 12 months into the future. What that means is that you're probably going to have some seats that aren't filled yet. And this is really helpful because it helps you sort of plan as you're thinking about the growth that you're going to experience as an organization. What are the seats that we need to fill? And so for my clients where they have one of those down in the organization, they just put, instead of name, they just plug in TBH, to be hired, and what quarter they're planning to hire it. And so this allows you to really plan out 6 to 12 months into the future. So those are the basics. Those are the fundamentals of the accountability chart. And I want to talk through, before we move to the 201, some of the common pitfalls that I see here. Some of the common mistakes that I see with my clients, that I see when someone reaches out and says, hey, can you just look at our accountability chart? I'm just going to take you through those. The first is that we took a people first, structure second approach. I said this earlier and I want to say it again. It is a gift to you and your business to be able to start fresh, to be able to take a step back and say, if we were doing this from scratch, if we had no people, if everybody hit the lottery except for me, right, or except for us, what would we build to build a successful organization? And so we're not building our seats around people and their strengths and weaknesses, which kind of works when you got 1 or 2 people, but it doesn't scale. But we're building the structure we need. That's the first pitfall, is when people do people first, structure second. The second is, this is how we've always done it. I start this exercise by saying we're looking forward, not backwards. And then throughout the exercise, I have to remind them, I don't care how you've always done it. How should you do it? Give yourself the gift of thinking differently. The third pitfall is 2 people, 1 seat. And this really applies at that leadership level, because when you go down into the organization, you might have 3 technicians and they all do the same thing and report to the same person, and they all are accountable for that seat on the jobs that they go to. But when you're thinking about that leadership level, who owns those major functions, marketing and sales, operations, finance, a lot of times we've all been helping each other. And I get that question, well, hey, I do some finance, they do some finance, so can we just share that seat? And if 2 people are accountable, nobody is accountable. And so you gotta pick for the greater good of the organization. The flip side of this that I see sometimes is 34 seats for 11 people. I had a client where I looked at this and they had graduated and been going on their own for about a year, and I was doing their annual planning and I pulled up their accountability chart and I just tallied it up. And they had made so many seats that didn't really make a lot of sense. Maybe the sales leader had a seat that was marketing, and then they had a seat that was actually selling, and then they had a couple salespeople in seats. And I said, well, couldn't that just be bullets for the sales leader? And so it makes sense to have those seats if you're planning to fill them with people in the next 6 to 12 months. But if the sales leader in your size organization needs to own a little bit of selling, needs to own the marketing, those can just be bullets in their seat. The next one is tasks instead of roles. This is where I see the 5 bullets turn into a little more of a job description. We've got 15 bullets or 20 bullets because we're trying to line out every single task that somebody does. And I love an analogy that I heard from another implementer one time. He said, it's kind of like if my son is responsible to take the trash out. Well, and if that's the only thing they're accountable for, he takes the trash out, and guess what? Nobody puts a new bag in. Nobody takes the trash to the curb. And so really what I want him to be accountable for is waste management, right? And everything that goes into that. And so when you're building those 5 bullets, really think of what are the things that they own, not the individual tasks, because you'll end up with a box that can't fit on 3 pages, but just truly, what are they accountable for? What do they own? The next one is talks to does not equal reports to. And so I see this happen sometimes where we're building this out, and maybe the project manager is accountable for turning in some stuff to finance to make sure that they can do progress billing. And so they start to put a seat that the project manager has to sit in over there because they have to report to finance. They have to tell them stuff. Reports to in your accountability chart means this is who owns LMA. This is who's accountable for their leadership, management, for developing them. Just because you talk to somebody doesn't mean you have to have a box reporting up to them. And so keep it simple. This is not a lines of communication chart. Communication should flow freely throughout your organization. Whoever needs to talk to whoever should do that. And the accountability chart is just about who truly owns what. And then the last one that I want to make sure I hit is what I call over-complexification. And this is just where I start to see some of these other things, but maybe my integrator just doesn't have really strong financial acumen. So I think I'm just going to have the finance seat still report to me as the visionary. Or I think maybe we'll do a dotted line because I want to make sure that we talk, right? And they start to add this complexity, and they make it way more complicated than it needs to be. And I had this realization a couple months ago that I want to share with you, and that is that almost always complexity is a symptom of avoidance. When I look in an accountability chart and I see way too many seats, or I see this weird structure that I've never seen before, almost always it's because we're avoiding a hard conversation. We're avoiding a realization that maybe somebody's not in the right seat. And so those are some of the common pitfalls that I would encourage you, if you've got an accountability chart, run it through there. See if you've fallen into any of those. So that's accountability chart 101. Those are the fundamentals of what we're working on. And so now I want to go a little bit deeper. I want to go into 201. And for 201, I really want to dig into how do we know if our accountability chart is any good? And there are 3 magic questions that we ask that I love because they're simple and it gets right to the root of where our issues are. So there are 3 questions we want you to be able to answer a yes to. And if you can answer a yes to this, you've got a great accountability chart. And they are, do we have the right structure? Do we have the right people in the right seats? And does everyone have enough time to do their job well? So I'm going to take you through those one at a time. First, do we have the right structure? I'm not going to spend a ton of time here because we just went through this, but there are a few questions that you can answer that will confirm this for you. One, is it simple? Have we made it as simple as we can? Two, does it set us up for the next 6 to 12 months? And I want to make sure I drive something home here. This is a rolling 6 to 12 months. So it's not like you make your accountability chart and then it's like a Ronco rotisserie oven. I don't know if anybody remembers those, but you set it and forget it, right? And you come back to it in 12 months. That's not how this works. You're always looking at your accountability chart. Is this the right structure? Does this set us up for success for the next 6 to 12 months? And then the last one, does it increase clarity and decrease complexity? If you can answer yes to those, you can be confident you've got the right structure. Question number 2, do we have the right people in the right seats? Right people, we've said, those are people that share our core values. We use the people analyzer to assess that. I'm not going to go deep into that right now, but what I want to do is go into the right seats part, and we'll talk about how we plug that into the people analyzer. And how do we determine if someone is in the right seat? Well, we ask 3 questions about that person. When we look at those 5 bullets that they're accountable for, do they get it? Do they want it? And do they have the capacity to do it? And I just want to take those one at a time. So get it. Get it is the hardwiring to do the job. It is the natural, innate talent. It's that the neurons in their brain connect in the way that they can just do this work. A lot of times when I ask my client, what does get it mean? They say they understand it. This is more than just understands. There are a lot of jobs that I understand and I am not well suited to do. Right? A lot of times this shows up when maybe they can do it, but it takes them 60 hours a week to do a 40-hour-a-week job. That was me when I was in an operations role. I don't get it. I'm not hardwired for it, but I could figure it out. I just didn't get it. This is why you don't hire typically a graphic designer to be your bookkeeper. Let's get it. Do they want it? Do they genuinely want to do the job? Do they get up every morning wanting it? And I got to tell you, you can't pay, motivate, force, or beg people to want it. And I love the example here of Michael Jordan after he won those first 3 rings. He didn't want to do basketball anymore. Man, he got it. Man, he had the capacity to do it, but he just didn't want it until after doing some baseball and then them going on strike. And then he came back and he wanted it, but nobody could make him want it except for him. And then the last is, do they have the capacity to do it? And capacity does not mean the time capacity. What it means is, do they have the physical capacity, the mental and emotional fortitude, the knowledge, the training, the experience, the reps doing the work to be able to do this really well? You can't move the needle on get it. You're hardwired or you're not. You can't move the needle on want it. They might be able to, but you can't. And then you can move the needle on capacity. You can give people more training, more reps, more experience. But most of the time in a fast growing organization, you just can't move it fast enough. So you just got to be aware of that. I want to do this in sort of a real life example. And by real life, I mean semi-real life. I'm obsessed with the movie Top Gun. My dogs are named Maverick and Charlie. When they go to their crates, I tell them to go to Miramar. And so I thought, okay, well, what would it look like? What's the accountability chart seat for the Top Gun, right? Not just a naval aviator, but you're at Top Gun Academy and you're going to win. You're going to get your name on the placard, right? Well, you got to have dogfight dominance. That's why they started the Top Gun Academy, was because of the dogfighting. You got to be able to be a mission leader, set the stage, drive the mission. We saw that in the new Top Gun, if you saw it. You also have to be a wingman. If you're not the mission leader, you've got to be able to be a wingman. And of course, we know you gotta be keeping up foreign relations. If you don't get that reference, I'm not going to visually illustrate it for you. Just Google it. And then we know beach volleyball, dog tags required, shirts optional. You got to be able to dominate that. And so let's look at that. If that's our seat, let's run that through the people analyzer. And so we mentioned this earlier. We assess the core values here with that plus, minus system. But then we plug in. Does he or she get it, want it, have the capacity to do it? Well, let's look at Maverick, Pete Mitchell, right? I would say he gets it. One of the most naturally talented fighters out there. He wants it. Yeah, he wants it. He's obsessed with it. And he's got the capacity to do it, right? Then let's talk about Cougar. Cougar right at the beginning of the movie. He's the one slated to go to Top Gun Academy. And they're out on their sortie and they get radar lock and he freezes. And he doesn't know what to do. And Maverick has to guide him back in. And he goes to his commanding officer and he turns in his wings. He gets it. He's naturally wired to be that naval aviator, to be really successful. And he wanted it at least at some point. That's what he wanted to do. But when it came time to that mental and emotional fortitude to be successful in that role, he didn't have the capacity. And then there's Tomahawk, and you may be asking, who's Tomahawk? I don't remember that character. Well, Tomahawk is what you get if you plug my name into a Top Gun call sign generator. And I don't get it. I have the reflexes of a three-toed sloth. I want it ever since I saw that movie on VHS and then rewound it and watched it again. I thought, man, I want to be a fighter pilot. But I also don't have the capacity to do it. I don't have the training, the experience. So that's just some real life GWC, get it, want it, capacity to do it, sort of real life. Now, there are a couple common pitfalls that I see here. One is the little engine that could pitfall. I think they can, I think they can, I think they can. And I see this a lot when someone's not performing in the role and my client starts to talk about, well, I think they're capable of, like, I think they have the ability to be great at this. They have the ability to learn it. And they're thinking of capacity in terms of one day they might be able to do it. And because we know you can move the needle on that, they're kind of holding on to that. But a yes on capacity means they can do it today. It means that they are capable of the job today. And if they're not, you've got to decide, okay, how long can we wait? Because the reality is they are not in the right seat. And you can't pretend like they are, but you can decide, hey, for this role, we want to give it a 6-month runway. And at the end of that 6 months, either they can or they can't. Either they're showing that they can do the job, that they're capable, or they're not. The other pitfall that I see here is when my clients just wait till it's inevitable. They're assessing this GWC stuff and they're starting to see maybe the person doesn't want it, right? They know they're capable of it because they've done it in the past. They know they get it, but they're just not showing up very motivated. They're not showing up on time. They're missing a lot. But instead of coaching early and often, they wait until they get to this point where they've lost all the trust. And we teach when you've got that issue, when somebody doesn't GWC, you just use the 3-strike rule and you say, hey, this is what I'm seeing. Here's what we need to fix. I'm going to check back in 30 days. And then you check back. If it's still not fixed, you check back. And you just go through that. But I think because it's the word strike, we have such a negative connotation to that. And so we wait until that 3-strike thing is a formality. And what I would urge you to do is to not fall into that trap, but treat that first strike conversation as a gift. Hey, I care enough about you. I love you enough and want you to be successful enough that I'm going to tell you as soon as I see an issue, and we're going to coach it so that we can fix it. Those are a couple common pitfalls I see in that GWC thing. Moving to that last question, does everyone have enough time to do their job well? Does everybody have the ability, if it's a 40-hour-a-week job, do they have enough time to get the job done in that 40 hours a week. And there are a few pitfalls that I see companies run into here. One is this idea that, well, they're in 2 seats and they can just split their time 50-50. And I need you to know that 50-50 is really like 40-40-20. Because they're going to spend about 40% of their time in this seat, 40% of their time in this seat, and then they're going to lose about 20% of their time. In a 40-hour work week, so that's 8 hours. They're going to lose about 20% of their time on task switching, going back and forth, never being able to really get into flow in their role. So you just need to be aware of that. Another realization is that when you've got people in multiple seats, well, a part-time seat is going to equal part-time effort, and all you get to expect is part-time results. You don't get to just get full-time results if you're asking somebody to split in multiple seats. And then the last one is this idea that we just need another person. We just need another one of these people because we're too busy with what we've got. I want to share with you the tool that we use when we don't have enough time to do the job well, to get clear on whether we actually need another salesperson or another technician or installer, or if we need something different. And that's the delegate and elevate tool. And this is one of my favorite tools because of its simplicity. Here's how it works. You take a list and you just make a list of everything that you do. You can keep a legal pad next to you for a couple weeks and just write down all the stuff you're doing. You can do a brain dump, block an hour and just get it all out on paper. Whatever works for you, but you make that list and then you put everything in one of these 4 categories. Each item goes in one of these. Some things you don't like to do and you're not good at. Some things you don't like to do and you're good at, and this is where most of the American workforce goes to die. They're good at something, so they just got stuck doing it for their whole career, even if they don't like it. Some stuff you like to do and you're good at, and some stuff you love to do and you're great at it. And Dan Sullivan would call this your unique ability, and where your unique ability aligns with the organization's needs, that's where you should be focused the most. And a real life example of how we use this in the company where we implemented EOS is we had a sales team and everybody sort of capped out at $1.5 million in revenue. And every time we wanted to increase revenue, the answer was, well, we got to hire another salesperson. And salespeople are expensive. They're like $200,000. Some of you have experienced this. But we had all the salespeople do this exercise. And we found something in common here. All of them in the don't like, not good, were spending a lot of time doing administrative work. Right? They were taking stuff from the CRM and putting it into the project management software. They were having to research vendors to find the best pricing to put into their bid. They were doing a lot of administrative work that they weren't particularly good at because they're not hardwired for it. And their love great, which was out building relationships and hunting and bringing people in, well, they were spending less time in that. And so the answer was not for us to just hire another salesperson to get another $1.5 million in revenue. The answer was for us to hire a sales admin, because all that stuff that was in there, don't like, not good, was in the admin's love great. And because of that, what was taking a salesperson 8 hours in a week, that admin could do in 3 hours because she was just better at it. And we were able to increase our salespeople output from $1.5 million to $2 million across 5 salespeople. And so by hiring a $60,000 a year admin, we were able to generate $2.5 million in additional revenue. And so this is a really powerful tool to make sure that you're building an organization where your people are truly living in their unique abilities, adding the most value to your organization, and hiring people to take that other stuff or automating or whatever you need to do. So that's the delegate and elevate tool. And that can help you with does everyone have enough time to do their job well? So as we come to a close, I just want to bring us back to the model. The thing that I love the most about EOS is that all the tools are great. And standing on their own, they're powerful, but the magic is in how everything works together. And so I just want to tie it all together for you. Where else does the accountability chart show up? Well, in your vision component, when you're thinking about those company rocks on your VTO, this is how we know who should own those rocks. We look to the accountability chart when we're unclear. This is how we know that we're on board with the vision, because we know, hey, if we're trying to grow revenue 100% in the next 3 years, that's going to be on these people. In the data component, our scorecard and measurables are how we can find out if somebody GWCs. Are they able to hit those measurables consistently? If they're a leader, do they know what to measure for their people? In the issues component, when we're doing IDS, it helps us know, hey, who makes the call here? Who should be owning this? In the process component, it tells us who should own what part of what process, who should own the overall process. And then, of course, in the traction component, right, in our meeting pulse, I teach my clients, you want to have your accountability chart out during the meeting, right? Because it's going to help us know who's accountable for this issue, who's accountable for the solve. And then in rocks, as you drive those through the organization, when you're looking for rocks or helping your team or individual contributors set rocks, well, what rocks would help them improve in those 5 roles, would move them forward in their seat? So those are just some areas where it all comes together, shows up in other areas of the model. So with that, we are going to move to the Q&A. That is my show. I'm excited for us to get to the questions. I'm going to stop my share, and I think Sherry's going to join.
I am, except I can't get my, there we go.
There you are.
My video won't come back. Justin, that was awesome. I picked up a few nuggets. I hope the rest of you were able to pick up a couple of ahas. Great stories and examples that Justin shared with us. We have a handful of questions in the Q&A that we are excited to answer. And we also had several pre-populated questions. So I'm going to kind of mix those up, Justin, if you're all right with that. And we will start with one here that is live from Stephanie. Stephanie asks, how do you approach the right seat when you know they don't have the capacity, but you can't afford to replace them? Basically, how do you get brave enough to do it as caring as possible? And then she's got in some parentheses here her main issue. We would need time to create the processes as they don't exist. This person does the work from memory and is not good at creating processes. Multi-level issue, not sure how to tackle it. Do you need clarity on that?
I don't think so. And here's what I'll say is, like, how you do it is, it's going to depend, right? We can't afford to replace that person. And I would ask, can you afford to not? And I would ask you to ask yourself, what would we do if they, I used to say got hit by a bus, but that seems so morbid. So we're going to say if they hit the lottery and pieced out, what would you do? And the answer is almost always you'd figure it out. And I would tell you what I've heard Gino say a bunch of times at the conference, which is like one good people move a quarter. And for you, that people move might be over a couple quarters of documenting the processes, getting these things handled, and then starting to have those coaching conversations around it. So I don't know if that may not be the answer you were looking for. And Sherry, I would love to hear if you've got a different perspective on that.
No, I love the question that you asked, because it's the question I always ask. What would happen if this person suddenly wasn't here anymore? Either because they won the lottery, whatever. Would you figure it out? And the answer is always yes. And in both my personal experience in my business and with my clients, I hear again and again and again, when something like this happens, everybody else, like, people rise up. That person was actually usually holding a lot of other things back and down inside your business.
Yeah. People
will, like nature abhors a vacuum, right, Justin? People will flow in and figure that out until you get it solved.
Yeah. And man, when I first started, and I knew, like, other implementers would talk, they'll figure it out. People will raise up. I'm like, okay. And I just see it over and over and over. Yep. And that's the feedback I get from my clients is, man, I wish we hadn't waited so long. Because everybody rose up.
Absolutely. Stephanie, how you doing? Can you give us a thumbs up if we were kind of in the ballpark there of what you were after? Excellent. Excellent.
Right.
All right, Justin, I'm going to give you another one here from who's on the call, and I'm going to go to one of the ones that was pre-populated and hope that they're here on the call. This is from Brandon. Is the delegate and elevate sheet for all of the leadership team or the entire company?
I start with the leadership team, right? I teach it to them, but then I want everybody in the company doing this because it creates so much clarity. Because there's a lot of stuff that even your individual contributors are doing. And when you look at that, you realize, okay, I can't hire someone to delegate that to, but we can automate that.
Mhm.
Or you'll find that they're doing some stuff that just frankly isn't that important. And so I think this is a really powerful tool to have everybody in the organization
Mhm.
do so that we're crystal clear on where they can add the most value.
Mhm. And you're never going to get to spend 100% of your time in the love to do and like, I mean, in the top two, that'd be awesome. But if we could get most
Yeah.
of our time there, and to Justin's point, those things that are down there, what can we delegate? What can we automate? Or what can we delete? Are the three questions I
Yeah.
ask my teams to answer, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes we're just doing it out of habit. It's like,
Yeah.
why are we doing
Yes.
this?
Oh my gosh. Yes.
Crazy. All right, I'm going to take us to a question that was pre-populated for us, Justin. So this question says, it's been 3 years. 2 of the 5 leadership team members have just left. Time for a refresh, reorganization. Ideas on how to make it easy.
No.
Because it's not easy.
I
It's simple, but not easy,
here's
right, Justin?
with most of the tools, it is simple and not easy.
Mm-hmm.
And some things I tell my clients to help them maybe ease the pain a little bit is realizing that everything we're doing is for the greater good. And when we restructure or when we figure out our leadership team, the leadership team is not the cool kids club. And that makes a difference because people have this perception of like, I'm on the leadership team and they're not. And the leadership team is simply who owns the major functions.
Mm-hmm.
And the accountability chart is not a level of importance chart. It is a who's accountable for it. And so we figure out structure first, people second. You can blame the process, right? This is what's best. And if you do a great job of this and you don't turn it into the cool kids club, then I see organizations where people move on and off the leadership team as the organization grows, as we restructure. And because they have that greater good mentality and that it's not, oh, these are just the cool people that we like,
Mm-hmm.
they just happen to be the people that own what are currently the major functions.
I love that.
So,
Yeah, everybody's voice is equally important, but there still needs to be a decision maker, right?
yeah.
It's kind of what I share with my teams as well. And in my experience in our own company and in others of my clients, even when you look at compensation, people on the leadership team are always making, even going to that tactical of a
Yeah.
level.
Yeah.
So get the cool kids club. I love that. I love that, Justin. I don't know whose question that was, but I hope that we got that answered for you if you are here on this call.
And the one other thing I'll say that I somehow didn't say during this that helps with that is get the titles out, right? So accountability chart just lists the function, not titles, not CEO, COO, VP, director, whatever. Those have value on business cards for the public sometimes, but this is not about titles. This is just about who owns what. And a lot of times that can ease some of the ego that might come rearing up.
I encourage my teams to really go extreme with that. So instead of saying field supervisor, that's a title. How about field supervision? That's a function.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right? Getting really clear on that all the way down your accountability chart. All right, I'm going to take us back to another live one. This is from somebody named Anonymous. We've got a few of those.
Oh,
suggestions
I know a few
for
anonymous.
Anonymous. It's a great role. Suggestions for a visionary in the sales seat. Good or bad, we are a small group. Not uncommon.
Yeah, super common. And I don't know if it's good or bad in your organization. Only you know that. And then I would send you back to just those realizations, right? 50-50 is not a thing. It's probably 40-40-20. Part-time effort is part-time results. But sometimes that's the right decision for the organization. And what can help is just getting clear. I have a client where we did this, and what we realized was he was adding a lot of stress on the amount of time he should be spending in the visionary seat versus his sales ownership seat. We just IDS'd it and we said, with the stage of where we are in our business today, you really need to spend like 10% of your time in that visionary seat, and then everything else can be the sales seat. And with that clarity, it was like the weight lifted off his shoulders because he knows where he should focus. So if you're in two seats like that, probably the best thing you can do is just, as the leadership team for the greater good of the organization, is decide, what does the time split look like? Where should the focus be? And get on the same page with that.
And then I've had a lot of this lately, Justin, a lot of just 2 and 3 people showing up for that first focus day and understanding, wow, I'm in like 3 or 4 seats right now. And so what I challenge them is, what are our triggers and which seats are we filling first? What triggers this? Is it revenue? Is it number of clients? Is it just time? Like, what's our trigger, so that they get real clarity on when they're going to solve for that in too many seats issue.
And do the delegate and elevate and see how much of that love grade is in which seat. Because I have another client that we just realized that the owner, not actually the visionary.
Yep.
Where he's loved great, he is in the sales seat.
Yep.
And the person they hired thinking would just be their integrator was really the visionary for the organization. Right? So like, be open-minded to whatever the tools show you, so that you can make the right decision for the greater good.
Awesome. I've got one question about rocks, and I'm going to hold off on that one and stick to accountability chart. And then if we have time, it's another anonymous attendee, we'll come back to that one. So I'm just giving that person a heads up. Let's see. Oh, Dale asks, and Justin, this will be, I think, a quick one for you. You mentioned not having multiple people in a seat, right? But that was for the leadership team. Is this true all the way down the accountability chart? I'm in a financial services industry, and our AC chart has a paraplanning seat, and multiple people do this role.
Yeah, so once you get down into that individual contributor role, you can absolutely just plug multiple names into one seat. Where you start to break it out is if they're going to report up to different people, right? So that you're crystal clear, because the accountability chart should make it clear to them who owns LMA for them, who owns their leadership, management, development. It's at that leadership level, major functions, you can only have one name in each of those seats.
And so to that point, when you talk splits, I have some construction companies and some like lawn care. So they have crew chiefs, and then they've got the labor that rolls up to that. We actually just have one seat, and there might be 5 crew chiefs, and there might be 25 people doing labor. On a separate piece of paper, they have, here's the chief that has, where they've got them broken down that way, so that we don't have this accountability chart that starts to get really gargantuan and gangly when you have a lot of frontline service workers. So just another tip or trick.
Whatever increases clarity and decreases complexity.
Yes. And doesn't make it so you can't figure it out anymore. I hope that solved that for you. I've already said it was solved, so hopefully we got that solved. Let's see. We've got Ruben asking us. It says, hi, Justin and Sherry. Do you have any tips or advice to help avoid blending this accountability chart with the org chart? We are having issues when going through the exercise and blending those two charts. Thank you. Ooh.
I have one tip, and that is throw away the org chart. You don't need both. One of the fundamentals of EOS is you can't run a great business on multiple operating systems. And that org chart we tend to sort of hold on to because it's a safety blanket for us. And this is about creating a new thing. And so you don't typically need both. So that's my tip. I'm curious, Sherry, if you have a different perspective.
No, that's 100% what I would have said. 100%. So Ruben, I don't know if that's the answer you want, but that is the answer you're going to get. All right. We've got a lot of people that are popping in questions. So I think we've just got a few more minutes left. So we'll see if we can get through these. And if we can't, team, just know you can reach out to us individually and we will do what we can. Let's see. Another anonymous. In a new accountability chart, how do you address decision-making when the visionary is used to making all the decisions and they revert back to influencing a number of the decisions regardless of who is accountable? This never happens.
Oh, man. It helps if you have a really strong integrator,
Yep.
because that's the person that is wrangling the visionary. Most of the time, that's the person that is really stepping in and saying, I hear you, and we gotta set that ground rule and agree to it at the beginning. And I had this happen in a session recently where the visionary was kind of politicking around a person. And I said, are you going to let your integrator make the call? And he said, you're right. I need to shut up. I've said my piece and I need to let my integrator make the call. And so a lot of times the best thing you can do there is just hold up the mirror. Even if you're not the integrator, just hold up the mirror and say, hey, we decided this and this is what I'm seeing. And it's not accusing. It's not saying you always do this or you're just the same as you've always been. It's just addressing the facts, which is, we decided this is what's going to happen. And it seems like right now you're not letting that happen. So are we going to do this or are we not going to do this? Because we need that clarity. And that would be how I would approach the situation if I didn't have a strong integrator, or if I was the integrator, that's how I would approach it with the visionary.
And make sure that your visionary and your integrator, whether that's you or are having those, we have the same page meeting cadence.
Yes.
So if that's not happening, that's really going to undermine that integrator's authority, because the visionary won't have confidence. And if this is not the right integrator for that visionary, and I don't want to dive too deep here, but sometimes it takes a few integrators to get to the right one. That visionary doesn't have full confidence, and that is not the missing puzzle piece on there. They're never going to let go. And I go back to the issue is actually, it's a people issue, not necessarily the visionary, but big part of it is the visionary.
And this is where I think it's so valuable to have your accountability chart easily accessible. If you're like EOS 1, if you're not using that, that's a great tool for building your accountability chart. Have that ready to go, pulled up, so that when you're in these moments, you can speak out and say, hey, based on our accountability chart, who should own this decision?
Absolutely.
Right. And use that tool, because sometimes we just forget and we slip into old habits.
We do break into old habits. I'm trying to see if there's a quick one on here that we can answer. Maybe one that was sent in advance. It says, what are some examples of what the integrator does in a small business? Is this person the CEO?
Oh, okay. So maybe they're the COO, and this is why I hate titles, because there's so much assumption in what goes into it. And Sherry, I happen to know this about your background. This was your role, so I'd love for you to field this one, because I think this is a great one for you.
Yeah, when our company was quite small, I was the integrator. I also sat in the finance seat and I sat in the ops seat, right? Ultimately, as we started to grow, I started to backfill some of those positions. So those of you that really understand visionary and integrator, you know that those are all functions that somebody who's great in an integrator role can also probably sit in, right? There's some similarities in our archetypes there versus the sales role, right? It's typically not something an integrator is going to be awesome at. So just understanding, I go back, Justin tied this up beautifully before with your time capacity, realizing, how much of your time needs to go where, and getting really clear on that and finding out where that bottleneck is happening inside the organization.
So I think in a small organization, a lot of times the integrator is sitting in an additional seat.
Yes. Or two.
And their or two, right? And their day-to-day depends on what those seats demand. And when they're not in multiple seats, their day-to-day is supporting the rest of the leadership team. And a lot of times it's the special projects. Oh, we're moving to a new office location. All right, the integrator's going to own that. Like that doesn't fall on anybody. So they're just going to own that. And they handle a lot of that kind of stuff.
All right, I think we are out of time. And here they're coming back in. There's quite a few questions that didn't get answered. We appreciate that you got those on here. If we had those sooner, we might have tried to get to some of those a little bit quicker, but some really good questions. Please get those answered.
Reach out. I think our contact information is going to get shared. One of our core values is help first. We are here to help.
So don't be afraid to do that. Oh, is this me or is this you?
I think this is you. Yeah, I'm just
so organized.
I'm just chilling.
I think this is me.
I did my part.
That's hilarious. All right, so we do have some slides up here. I really do want to thank Justin. Justin, that was awesome. I got some really great stuff, and those questions were helpful. I hope that we were able to address some of those for you. Some helpful resources. EOS 1 is live, right? That is kind of our official software. It's a great place when you're trying to build out that accountability chart to give you some help. It'll help you kind of play around in there. We've also got blogs, podcasts, tools, videos, and I think these QR codes that are up here on the screen are going to take you to all of those things. We'd also love for you to claim your We Run on EOS badge for those of you that have been running on EOS for a little bit of time. This will get you into the directory. The EOS directory is awesome because you can go in there and find out other businesses that are running on EOS, and maybe those are the type of folks, if you need a provider in some way or something that's complementary to you, it's a great place to go find another company running on EOS. Sometimes it's more fun to work with those. And then there will be a survey that pops up. We have another. There we go.
I think that goes at the end.
It goes at the end. So when we're all done here, I just want to thank everybody for giving us your time today. I hope that you got something out of this. That is always what we want. Justin, any parting thoughts for the group?
Just talk to each other. A lot of these conversations, a lot of these challenges when it comes to the accountability chart are us avoiding hard conversations and just talking to each other. So if I could leave you with one thing, it's talk to each other.
Absolutely. Don't run away from the hard conversations, right? Don't run away from those. They're never as hard as you think they're going to be.
Yeah.
So somebody has once said, you choose your hard. Is your hard either sucking up what's happening, like putting up with this pain that we're in right now and having that endure? That's one hard. The other hard is going and having that conversation and getting that solved. Choose your hard.
Yeah. One, you'll be right where you were a year from now, and one could transform your life and your organization.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great week.
Thank you.
Good job, Justin.
Thank you.
I'm going to go join